Previously on Power Fur Rangers. After contaminating the water supply, the citizens of Gold City have turned against the Power Fur Rangers. The evil Emperor sent Golip with a new supply of venom to contaminate a new batch of water, while his new monster, Quaker, attacks the city to keep the Power Fur Rangers distracted. Can they stop both Quaker and Golip? Find out on today's episode of Power Fur Rangers.
Power Fur Rangers Episode 6 Toying Around Part 2. Created and written by the Furry Sith Lord. Fanfiction based on Saban's Power Ranger series. Golip, where are you? The Black Power Fur Ranger said as he slowly moved forward. He was hoping to catch some movement so he would know where to attack. Little did he know he was being watched as Golip slowly crept up on him from behind. When the Black Power Fur Ranger stopped to look around, then Golip stopped and sat on the floor like a dog. I need to get him speaking. What is it he keeps saying? Pits, pits, pits. He shouted, then Golip vanished as he stepped back into the shadows and reappeared elsewhere. Pitiful, pitiful, pitiful. The pit is full, pitiful. The voice of Golip echoed and the Black Power Fur Ranger had no idea where it was coming from. He suddenly heard a noise that sounded like a can had been kicked, but when he turned to look, he saw there was nothing there. So you're playing with me, Golip, he said to himself, and he continued to cautiously look around. He froze as he heard Golip laughing and the cries echoed again, making it impossible to know where the source is. Pitiful. The Black Power Fur Ranger shouted. Wanna be friends, Golip? Golip appeared a short distance in front of him and its eyes shone with an eerie light. Friend to the end, but the end is coming quickly. It remarked as it took up a defensive stance. The Black Power Fur Ranger took out his fur axe, and he watched as Golip slipped a pair of old worn brown gloves on. Sudden long-pointed knife blades slid out from the fingertips and looked like extensions from Golip's fingers. The Black Power Fur Ranger ran forward with his axe raised ready to swing, and Golip used one hand to do a handstand, then used that hand to push himself so that he flipped over the Black Power Fur Ranger. He landed effortlessly behind him and spun with amusement on his face as the Black Power Fur Ranger looked stunned as he swung his axe, but Golip was gone. You're pretty crafty, my friend, the Black Power Fur Ranger said, and Golip sneered at him. Pitiful, pitiful, pitiful. Golip muttered. That's what you think, but don't expect me to keep going easy on you. The Black Power Fur Ranger said, and Golip jumped toward his with the blade swirling, and he slashed at the Black Power Fur Ranger, and the impact on his chest exploded in a spray of sparks. The Black Power Fur Ranger rolled on the ground as cried out in pain, and he was breathing heavily but grateful his armor had protected him. It's playtime, Rangers. Quaker shouted as the Power Fur Rangers ran towards him with their weapons drawn. Game over, freak. The Red Power Fur Ranger said. The Pink Power Fur Ranger loaded her bow and fired a shot, but the monster threw out a large top and it deflected the attack. Army Furs, attack. Quaker shouted as he tosses out small green plastic army fur soldiers, and when they hit the ground they began to grow to life-size versions. They're just toys, right? The Blue Power Fur Ranger said as he watched the green soldiers raise plastic guns that had no holes for the bullets to come out of. Ah, toys, he says. Quaker shouted and the guns started firing laser bolts at the Power Fur Rangers. They dodged out of the way as the blast struck the ground and exploded on impact. Who needs snake warriors when you can have army furs? Quaker mocked. To think I used to like toys. The Yellow Power Fur Ranger said after making a few clicking noises. Like when I was a hatchling, my brothers used a magnifying glass to melt their army furs. Let's combine our weapons and melt these jerks. The Pink Power Fur Ranger said. We can't. Zyla isn't here and we need his axe to combine them. Lion replied. I got an idea, the Blue Power Fur Ranger said. Lisa, can you infuse your arrows with energy? If you can, charge them with enough and those plastic things will melt. Like I've never tried before. The Pink Power Fur Ranger said. Now's the time to find out. The Red Power Fur Ranger ordered. Oh no, Pink Power Fur Ranger. Follow my instructions and you can infuse your arrows with the element of your choice. This will take a few minutes though. Clank said as his voice spoke through the earpieces of their helmets. Let's keep them busy, Lion said as the other rangers ran out to distract the monster and the toys while the Pink Power Fur Ranger was learning how to adapt her weapon. She drew back on her bow and an arrow appeared, but she kept still and focused as swirling streams of energy began to flow into the tip. The energy was collected and the fire element, she chose, was being formed, making her regular arrow into a fire arrow. The other Power Fur Rangers ran and zigzagged to keep the army furs away from attacking the Pink Power Fur Ranger. They taunted and mocked the creatures, and they continued to fire their toy guns at the Rangers. Finally, a bright orange flame appeared on the tip of her arrow, and she made ready to fire it. Like guys, bring them together because I only have one shot at them, then I'll need to craft another fire arrow. The Pink Power Fur Ranger said. The other Rangers heard over their earpieces. You got it, Lisa. The Red Power Fur Ranger replied and gave orders to the other two to help round up the army furs together. When the army furs were pressed back to back in a circle, the Pink Power Fur Ranger fired her arrow at them and the heat melted the toys instantly. No fair, no fair, complained Quaker, and he tossed out 2 beach balls that lightly hit the ground. Then they immediately swelled up in size to about the size of a car and began to bounce up and down on their own. The balls then started to bounce toward the Power Fur Rangers, and when the balls struck the ground, they left an imprint as if an object of very heavy weight was dropped on it. Unless you want to become a pancake, you better not let those touch you. The Blue Power Fur Ranger cautioned. Like no duh. The Pink Power Fur Ranger said as she rolled her eyes, though no one could see it because of her helmet. The Red Power Fur Ranger ran up and struck one of the balls with his sword, hoping to pop it, but the metal of his sword clanged as if it struck steel. Not good, the Yellow Power Fur Ranger cried. Pitiful, 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 the pit is full. Golip mocked as the Black Power Fur Ranger was kneeling on the ground, exhausted from fighting Golip. The creature seemed unfazed and looked to be enjoying himself. I need a new tactic, the Black Power Fur Ranger said softly to himself as he waited to catch his breath. The visor of his helmet was displaying an image of his outfit, but a percent gauge was showing that his armor was weakening. He was down to 12% before his armor failed and he would turn back into his regular self. Would you like a drink of water, Ranger? Golip asked as he balanced a vial on one of the bladed fingers of his gloves. He could not see the fury in the Black Power Fur Ranger's eyes. Golip, listen to me. We can help you. We can maybe turn you back to normal. The Black Power Fur Ranger pleaded, and Golip turned his head slightly as it looked at him in confusion. A helping paw drops to the floor when cut off. Golip mused. He used his gloved hand to grab the vial and held it tightly. The Black Power Fur Ranger edged his way forward with his gloved paws held out to indicate he meant him no harm. When he was in striking distance, the expression changed into a sinister look. The Black Power Fur Ranger raised his axe in time to block the strike from Golip. The impact destroyed his axe in a shower of sparks. Zoltan, Golip destroyed my weapon. The Black Power Fur Ranger spoke into the microphone inside his helmet. Zyla, don't worry, the axe can be fixed, but we just need time to recharge it, much like your suit. Just be careful, it might not survive another attack. Zoltan cautioned. Copy, Zoltan, the Black Power Fur Ranger replied. Oh no, please hurry because your friends need you. Clank replied as he was panicking. I'm running out of options, and if I don't think of something quick, then it'll be the end of me. The Black Power Fur Ranger said to himself. Golip slowly crept forward with a big grin on his face. He walked on all fours, and the claws made a screeching sound as they were dragged on the floor. Hey Golip, wanna see a magic trick? The Black Power Fur Ranger said, and Golip immediately stopped and a confused look spread across his face. Watch this, opposable thumbs. The Black Power Fur Ranger did a common magic trick that made it look as if the thumb on his paw was separated from his paw, then reattached. It was the kind of trick that young cubs love to watch, but easy to see that it was not real for those older. Golip seemed captivated by it, and he would not stop staring as if he was trying to figure it out. The Black Power Fur Ranger wondered how long until he came up with another trick. He knew that this was just a short delay as he desperately tried to think of what to do. Golip laughed gleefully, then jumped backwards and disappeared into the shadows. A moment later, he returned holding a metal ball that had a red sensor in the middle. The object was slightly larger than his palm, and it looked to have multiple gears and levers on it. Magic, Golip said as he tossed the ball upwards and 4 long robotic legs spread out. The ball attached itself to the ceiling. The red-eye sensor looked straight down, then began to emit a red light that made it difficult to see in the darkened room. The Power Fur Rangers had to keep jumping out of the way to avoid the oversized toy balls that were targeting them. Every time the pink Power Fur Ranger tried to charge up an arrow, one of the balls stopped chasing the Rangers and went specifically after her instead. "This isn't good. They are trying to wear us down," the blue Power Fur Ranger said. "It would make it easier to beat us that way." The yellow Power Fur Ranger said, "Hey guys, what have I missed?" Zyla ran up to the group looking like his regular self, except that his clothes were torn and his fur looked dirty. "Like what happened to you?" the pink Power Fur Ranger asked. "Golip had me trapped and he turned out the lights. Lucky for me that wolves like the dark, so I could see better than him, and I stole the vial off him. He managed to shred my suit, but I stopped him from contaminating any more water tanks." Zyla said, "Good job, but why aren't you suited up?" the red Power Fur Ranger asked. "My suit needs to recharge. It's only at 1% power right now." Zyla explained. "Then stay back so you don't get hurt, because these toys mean business," the red Power Fur Ranger said. One of the bouncing balls came near him and he dodged out of the way, narrowly avoiding the impact. "We can't wait any longer. We need your fur axe," the yellow Power Fur Ranger pleaded, and Zyla transformed into the black Power Fur Ranger. "Combine Power Fur weapons," the red Power Fur Ranger ordered. "Right," the others replied as they held their personal fur weapons. "Fur axe," the black Power Fur Ranger said as he threw his axe into the air, and it transformed into gun stock with the axe head turning into a gun handle. "Fur bow," the pink Power Fur Ranger said as she threw her fur bow up to where the fur axe remained suspended. The bow began to transform as it attached itself to the axe the long way, with 2 small arrows becoming sights used to aim. "Fur staff," the blue Power Fur Ranger shouted as he tossed his staff into the air, and it transformed into a large arrow that set itself on top of the bow. "Fur daggers," the yellow Power Fur Ranger shouted, and she tossed her fur daggers up and they transformed and attached themselves to the tip of the arrow and began to spin around like saw blades on the left and the right of the arrow. "Fur sword," the red Power Fur Ranger tossed up his sword, and it attached itself to the top of the arrow and spun around as if it was a drill bit. The weapon landed in the paws of the red Power Fur Ranger as the others stood behind him. "Fire!" the Power Fur Rangers shouted as a laser beam shot out, immobilizing the monster as the large arrow shot out and cut a path through it. Quacker looked stunned as it fell and exploded on the ground. The toys it had been using instantly vanished. The evil Emperor glared at his monster from his throne. He growled, then turned his gaze towards his monster, and red laser beams shot out of his eyes. "You, my monster, will reach the sky, as I watch you with my dragon's eye," he shouted. Then twin red laser beams shot down from the sky, and when they hit the monster, then he began to mutate and grow as large as a skyscraper. "Zords, arise!" the red Power Fur Ranger ordered, and, in the distance, a loud crash was heard as 5 different colored robots began to crawl out of the ground. These robots were as big as a skyscraper, and they looked like humanoid knights in armor. They began to run at top speed towards the Power Fur Rangers and stopped once they reached them, and the Power Fur Rangers entered them. "Power shields," the red Power Fur Ranger ordered, and the Zords had their shields and swords appear. The Power Fur Rangers used the shields to block 2 spinning tops that Quaker threw their way. They hit the shields and exploded on impact. "We need the Megazord," the red Power Fur Ranger said. "Right." The others agreed, and the Zords jumped up into the sky and began to transform and combine into the Megazord. The red Knight Zord became the body, and the black Knight Zord became the arms. The pink and yellow Zords each became a leg, and lastly the blue Knight Zord became armament for the Megazord, and began to generate an energy field to protect it. The Megazord summoned a double-sided sword called the Tanto Katana and used it as Quaker prepared for his next attack. "Should I walk the dog, Rangers? Or take you around the world?" Quaker said as 2 large yo-yos appeared, and he tossed them at the Megazord. Each yo-yo wrapped itself around an arm of Megazord, and once fully attached, a bolt of lightning traveled through the ropes attached and shocked the Megazord. Quaker then used the ropes to lift the Megazord and slam it against the ground. The Megazord struggles to stand back up as Quaker threw out some jacks and they landed on the ground, and the ends had ultra-sharp blades on them. I get the feeling if we touch those it'll be the end of us. The Yellow Power Fur Ranger remarked. Time to end this. The Red Power Fur Ranger said, and the others agreed, then set the controls to perform the final attack. The Megazord stomped a foot, then it stomped the second, then it began to rapidly stomp its feet as it leaned forward, getting ready to attack with the double-sided katana it held. The Megazord ran forward and leaped over the jacks to prevent them from damaging the Megazord. It then ran towards Quaker and made a single slash that made the energy of the double-sided katana amplified by the momentum it had created. The Megazord ran past the monster it held onto its side as it fell forward and exploded as fragments of its body flew in different directions as they shrunk to their original size. Pitiful, pitiful, pitiful Rangers. You lost this round. Golip said as he laughed, then collected a fragment and vanished back to the moon base. The group sat and relaxed at Billy's juice bar as they enjoyed some fruit smoothies. They picked a table away from everyone else so they could talk in private with each other. The antidote may take some time before it cures those affected by the venom. I just hope species hating of the Power Fur Rangers isn't permanent. Brian said, then he used his wing to adjust his glasses. You mean it could be permanent? Zyla asked. I doubt it, but it could take a while because the antidote was meant to stop the infected water, so it's unknown how it will affect species. We just have to wait and see. Brian explained. So, like what happened with that Golip creature? Lisa asked and Zyla blushed. It was scary. He had these gloves and they had long knives on the ends, then he could vanish into the shadows, and when he turned out the light, I thought I was done for. I just got lucky that he was so simple-minded that I was able to distract him and confuse him long enough to steal the vial and make it out of there. All this has been a serious wake-up call. We need to get better because the evil Emperor isn't as easy to beat as we thought. Who knows what else he has slipped by us? Lion said. Yeah, but as long as we stand together there is nothing we can't handle. Zyla said, and the others cheered as they agreed with him. Lion looked away and the others were focused on something else, but no one saw that Zyla's eyes flashed red for a moment. Earlier, the Black Power Fur Ranger looked around in panic as he could barely see with the red light now covering everything. He looked around desperately wondering where Golip was hiding. Hey Golip, let's call a truce because we are both Rangers after all. The Black Power Fur Ranger said, and there was a sudden explosion on his chest as sparks briefly illuminated Golip standing next to him and smiling evilly. The Black Power Fur Ranger turned back into Zyla as his suit vanished and Zyla was flat on his back helpless as Golip climbed on top of him. Pitiful, pitiful, pitiful Ranger. You now belong to my master. Golip said as he poured the vial of venom into Zyla's maw and made him drink. Golip then took the antidote and drank it, then burped loudly. Zyla's head felt funny and he was trying to fight off the sense of dizziness he felt. His eyes then flashed a quick red color, and he no longer cared about anything except to do the bidding of the evil Emperor. What does my master want? Zyla asked submissively. Golip grinned even more as he removed his gloves. Go, help the Power Fur Rangers destroy Quaker, then wait for further orders. Golip said as he vanished into the shadows. Zyla rose and tore up his clothing using his claws, then covered his clothes with dirt before the object that Golip had thrown to the ceiling broke and vanished. I told you that the Power Fur Rangers were overconfident and it would be their undoing. The evil Emperor gloated. Hiss. So what? What good is one Ranger? The evil Empress asked. One now, but I plan to study that Ranger, and once I figure out how his powers work then I'll create a Ranger of my own. Together the two of them will destroy the others. The evil Empress said. First them, then Zoltan and that pile of junk. The winged ape cheered. Soon the whole planet will be under my command. The evil Emperor laughed. This ends episode 6. I hope you enjoyed it. Please join us again in episode 7.